Officials have announced that Equatorial Guinea's ruler Teodoro Obiang Nguema Mbasogo has been re-elected for a sixth term as president with 94.9% of the votes cast. Obiang, who is aged 80, seized power in a 1979 coup and is the longest ruling head of state in the world, excluding monarchs. He's never officially been re-elected with less than 93% of the vote. Electoral Commission head Faustino Ndong Esono Eyang confirmed that Obiang would serve another 7 years in the top job. The Commission says the turnout rate for the election was 98%. Now, Global Affairs Analyst Calvin Dock joins me to discuss this further. Calvin, good to see you. Now, 80 years old, President Equatorial Guinea, Teodoro Mbasogo, he's won his re-election bid for his sixth term as the West African country's president. Now, how should this be received or perceived as a plus for the country or negative?
Well, first of all, his age doesn't really bother me that much. My president in the United States just turned 80 last week. What does bother me is that clearly what's happening in Equatorial Guinea is not democracy. It hasn't been, at least as long as I've been born. I was born in 1979. One of my professors had a really short and concise definition for democracy. And he said it's when power can peacefully change hands based on the voice of the people being governed. Meaning that if you have elections, there has to be a realistic possibility that power can change hands based on what the people say. There's no way that's been happening. This is Saddam Hussein level, 95, 93%, 98% voting. I think it's unfortunate, and I think that this is a negative for Equatorial Guinea and its citizens.
And we see that he received 94, just as the Electoral Commission has said, 94.9% of the votes in that election. Well, he's never scored less than 90% in all the previous 5 elections. Now, this clearly, Calvin, suggests overwhelming support from his people, isn't it?
It doesn't suggest overwhelming support. It suggests that there was only one choice. Now, we know that I think there were 2 other opposition candidates, but they weren't real candidates. When you have spent the last 40 plus years designing a system that works to keep you and I think his son to be reelected once this term is over, that's not democracy. And I think one of the things that as I was watching this, I wanted the international community to speak out more strongly, including my own country, United States. But, the international community takes its cue from the African Union. I read the African Union's report about, the electoral process. I thought it was very disturbing. They painted what is clearly an authoritarian regime, or at least one that's not free for democracy, as democratic. That's not helpful for Equatorial Guinea or for Africa.
And the president is coming in for a record 6th term in office in a country where, as rightly stated, opposition is stifled and, coupled with a free press, which is lacking. What can we hope to see differently in another 7-year rule of Mr. Obiang?
Well, first of all, I think letting him, continue through the next 7 years, that basically is the biggest obstacle. But I think neighboring countries, the African Union, then after them, the European Union, the United States, should make it clear that we expect democracy in these countries. The people of Equatorial Guinea deserve democracy. And I think what saddens me about this, election in quotes, is that this sends a horrible message to authoritarian leaders across the continent of Africa, those who are currently and those who want to be. And that has to change because this 2022, if we are going to really progress, and I'm speaking as an African American now, Africa has to value democracy and transparency more.
Let's see if we can close on this, Calvin, looking at the sit-tight syndrome of some African leaders. What can Africans really do to change the narrative of its leaders?
That's a difficult one, and that's where I think it's going to turn to the international institutions. I think the best way is for citizens to demand democracy, demand transparency. But I also understand that in these countries, and Equatorial Guinea as an example, those types of expressions are stifled. So while I think it is up to the people, I definitely understand that a lot of times people in countries with authoritarian leaders don't have the safety and security that they can voice their opinion freely as they could. That's when the international community should step in.
Calvin Duck, many thanks for speaking with us.
Thank you.